Good morning, all of you. Unit 2, The Tiger King by Kalki. What is the general attitude of human beings towards wild animals? You may think about that and also reflect on what this lesson says. The Maharaja of Pratibandhampuram is the hero of this story. He may be identified as His Highness Jamedar General, Khiledar Major, Sata Vyagra Samhari, Maharaja Diraj, Vishwa Bhuvan Samrat, Sir Jilani Jung Jung Bahadur, MAD, ACTC or CRCK, but this name is often shortened to the Tiger King. All these are the names of the Maharaja, but he was popularly known as the Tiger King. I have come forward to tell you why he came to be known as Tiger King. I have no intention of pretending to advance only to end in the strategic withdrawal. Start telling something and strategically I will withdraw. That's not my intention. Even the threat of the Stuka bomber will not throw me off track. Means I am going back and tell you the story properly and I am not going to go off track. The Stuka, if it likes, can beat a hasty retreat from any story. Now Stuka was known for that hastily he would wind up the story and conclude nothing. But I am not going to do that. Right at the start, it is imperative, compulsory to disclose a matter of vital importance about the Tiger King. Everyone who read of him will experience the natural desire to meet a man of his indomitable courage face to face. He was such a courageous man and he had an indomitable courage which cannot be subdued by anything. Anybody after reading about him would like to meet him face to face, but there is no chance of its fulfillment. But nobody will be able to meet him, as Bharat Bharat said to Ram about the Dasrath, just as say Bharat told Ram about Dasrath, and Ram could never meet Dasrath when he passed away. In that way, the Tiger King has reached that final abode of all living creatures. He has passed away, he is no more, so nobody can meet him. In other words, the Tiger King is dead. The manner of his death is a matter of extraordinary interest. It can be revealed at the end of the tale. His demise was that as soon as he was born, astrologers had foretold that one day that when he was born at that time, say, it was predicted by astrologers that he would have to die. Everybody has to die. What is new about it? But the child will grow up to become a warrior of warriors, hero of heroes, champion of champions. But they bit their lips and swallowed hard. When compelled to continue, the astrologer came out with it. This is a secret which should not be revealed at all, and yet we are forced to speak out. The child born under this star will one day have to meet its death. Now, every child meets its death. What is there so uncommon about it? At that very moment, a great miracle took place. An astonishing phrase emerged from the lips of the 10-day-old Jilani Jungjung Bahadur. O wise prophets, now 10 days old baby, he started speaking, that is uncommon. And he said, O wise prophets, everyone stood transfixed in stupefaction. Nobody could move, they were all amazed. They looked widely at each other and blinked. O wise prophet, it was I who spoke. This time there was no ground for doubt, and it was clear that, say, the baby had spoken. It was the infant born just ago who had clearly, who had spoken the words so clearly. The chief astrologer took off his spectacles and gazed intently at the baby. All those who are born will one day have to die. We don't need your predictions to know that. There would be some sense in it if you could tell us the manner of that death. The royal infant uttered these words in his little squeaky voice. The chief astrologer placed his finger on his nose in a wonder. A baby barely 10 days old opens its lips in speech? Not only that, it also raises intelligent questions? Incredible. Rather like the bulletins issued by the War Office than facts. It was more amazing in that way. In the bullet, it was unbelievable. The chief astrologer took his finger off his nose and fixed his eyes upon the little prince. The prince was born in the hour of the bull. The bull and the tiger are enemies. Therefore, death comes from the tiger, he explained. You may think that Crown Prince Jungjung Bahadur was thrown into a quack when he heard what happened. Crown Prince gave a deep growl. Terrifying words emerged from his lips. Let tigers beware. I am born and let tigers beware. This account is only a rumor rife of Pratibandampuram, but with hindsight, with hindsight, we may conclude it was based on some truth. Crown Prince Jungjung Bahadur grew taller and stronger day by day. No other miracle marked his childhood days described. The boy drank the milk of an English cow, was brought up by an English nanny, tutored in English by an Englishman, saw nothing but English all the other Indian states did. When he came of age at 20, the state, which had been with the court of wards until then, came into his hands. But everyone in the kingdom remembered the astrologer's prediction. Many continued to discuss the matter. Slowly it came to the Maharaja's ears. There were innumerable forests in the Pratibandpuram state. They had tigers in them. The Maharaja knew the old saying, you may kill even a cow in self defense. There could certainly be no objection to killing tigers in self defense. If for self defense you can kill a cow also, cow is generally not harmful. But if a tiger has to be killed in self defense, one should certainly kill it. The Maharaja was thrilled beyond measure when he killed his first tiger. He sent for the state astrologer and showed him the dead beast. What do you say now? He demanded. Your Majesty may kill 99 tigers in exactly the same manner. But, the astrologer drawled, but what? Speak without fear. But you must be very careful with the 100th tiger. What if 100 tigers were also killed? Then I will tear up all my books of on a set fire to them. Tuft, crop my hair short and become an insurance agent. That is what an astrologer generally doesn't become. The astrologer finished on an incoherent note. This was an incoherent note that he made that I'll become an insurance agent. From that day onwards, it was celebration time for all the tigers inhabiting Pratibandpuram. The state banned tiger hunting by anyone except the Maharaja. That is why it was a celebration for the tigers. All the tigers will be killed by the Maharaja now. A proclamation was issued to the effect that if anyone dared to fling so much as a stone to a tiger, all his wealth and property would be confiscated. If anybody would throw a stone also at a tiger, then his wealth will be taken away by the Raja vowed only after killing the 100 tigers. Initially, the king seemed well set to realize his ambition. Not that he faced no dangers. There were times when the bullet missed its mark. The tiger leapt upon him, and he fought the beast with his bare hands. This time it was the Maharaja who won. At another time, he was in danger of losing his throne. A high ranking British officer visited Pratibandpuram. He was very fond of hunting tigers and fonder of being photographed with the tiger he had shot. As usual, that is about the English British officer. He was fond of hunting tigers, and then he would, like him, usually, he wished to hunt tigers in Pratibandpuram. But the Maul, he refused permission. I can organize any other hunt. You may go on a boar, a mouse hunt. We are the mosquito hunt, but tiger hunt, that's impossible. Secretly sent word to Maharaja through the Diwan that the Durai himself did not have to kill the tiger. The Maharaja could do the actual killing. That is what say that he was advised. The British officer's secretary came and said that the British officer is not interested in killing. He just wants to get himself photographed. The Maharaja can kill the tiger. The Maharaja could do the actual killing. What was important to the Durai was a photograph of himself holding the gun and standing over the tiger's carcass, dead body. But the Maharaja would not agree even to this proposal. If he relented now, what would he do if other British officers agreed? Then what would happen if other British officer also came for hunting tigers? Because he prevented the British officer from fulfilling his desire, the Maharaja stood in danger of losing his kingdom itself. The Maharaja and the Diwan held deliberations, discussions over this issue. As a result, a telegram was dispatched forthwith to the famous British Company of Jewellers in Calcutta. After the discussion, what they did was they sent a telegram to a famous uh, company of jewelers, British Company of Jewellers. Sent samples of expensive diamond rings of different designs. Some 50 rings arrived. The Maharaja sent the whole lot to the British officer's good lady. The king and the minister expected the Durai Sani to choose one or two rings and send the rest back. Within no time at all, the Durai Sani sent a reply. Thank you very much for your gifts. In 2 days, a bill for 3 lakh rupees came from the British dwellers. The Maharaja was happy that though he had lost 3 lakh of rupees, he had managed to retain his kingdom. The Maharaja's tigers hunt continued to be highly successful. Within 10 years, he was able to kill tigers, and then brought his mission to a standstill. An unforeseen hurdle, obstacle, something that could not be, say, predicted, or something that could not be seen happening, visualized in future. That happened. The tiger population became extinct in the forest of Pratibandpuram. Who knows whether the tigers practiced birth control or committed uh, harakiri. Either of the things must have happened. Or simply ran away from the state because they desired to be shot by British hands only. This is a joke, but for whatsoever reason, the tiger population in Pratibandampuram forest deteriorated and there were no tigers now. One day the Maharaja sent for the Diwan. Diwan Sahib, aren't you aware of the fact that 30 tigers still remain to be shot down by this gun of mine? He asked, brandishing his gun. Shuddering at the sight of the gun, the Diwan cried out, Your Majesty, I am not a tiger. You can kill me, so you don't need to brandish the gun in front of me. And you cannot kill me because I am not a tiger. Which idiot would call you a tiger? The Maharaja said. No, and I am not a gun. You are neither tiger nor gun, Diwan Sahib. I summoned you here for a different different purpose. Your Majesty, I have two wives already. If I marry you, Diwan was a foolish Diwan. He misunderstood things. That fellow said that, Your Majesty, sorry, you are neither tiger nor a Diwan Sahib. I summoned you here for different. I have decided to get married. So, what is say? The Diwan began to babble even more. Your Majesty, I have two wives already. If I marry you, don't talk nonsense. Why should I marry you? What I want is a tiger. Your Majesty, please think it over. Your ancestors were married to the sword. If you like, marry the gun. A tiger king is more than enough for this state. It doesn't need a tiger queen as well. The Maharaja gave a loud crack of laughter. I am not thinking of marrying either a tiger or a gun, but a girl from the ranks of human beings. First, you may draw up statistics of tiger population in different native states. Next, you may investigate if there is a girl I can marry in the royal family of the state with a large tiger population. The Diwan followed his orders. He found the right girl possessed a large number of tigers. His father-in-law. In this manner, 99 tiger skins adorned the walls of the reputation hall of Pratibandhapuram palace. The Maharaja's anxiety reached a fever pitch when there remained just one tiger to achieve his tally of the 100. He had his one thought during the day and the same dream at night. By this time, the tiger farms had run dry even in his father in law's kingdom. It became impossible to look at tigers anywhere. Yet, only one more was needed. If he could kill just that one single beast, the Maharaja would have no fears left. He could give up tiger hunting altogether. But he had to be extremely careful with that last tiger. What had the late chief astrologer said? Even after killing 99 tigers, the Maharaja should beware of the 100th. True enough, the tiger was a savage beast after all. One day, to be wary of it, one had to be wary of it, one had to be aware of it. But where was that 100th tiger to be found? It seemed easier to find tiger's milk than a live tiger. Thus the Maharaja was sunk in, but soon came the happy news. In his own state, frequently from the hillside village, first ascertained that this was not the work of, say, Khader Mia Sahib or Virasamy Nikar. These are the people who were likely to pick up the sheep, but that was not the case. Both famed for their ability to swallow sheep whole. Surely the tiger was at work. So the sheep were being killed by tiger. That was the good news. The villagers ran to inform the Maharaj. The Maharaja announced a 3-year exemption from all taxes for the village and set out on the hunt at once. The tiger was not easily found. It seemed as if it had wantonly hid itself in order to float the Maharaja's will. To avoid the Maharaja's will of killing him, he had wantonly hid himself. The Maharaja was equally determined. He refused to leave the forest until the tiger was found. As the days passed, the Maharaja's fury and obstinacy mounted alarmingly. Many officers lost their jobs because he would say, drive away the officers who did not follow his instruction. One day, when his rage was at its height, the Maharaja called the Diwan and ordered him to double the land tax forthwith. That now, instead of reducing the taxes, double it, because he could not find the tiger. The people will become discontented. Then our state too will fall a prey of the Indian National Congress. In that double up the taxes. The Diwan went home convinced that if the Maharaja did not find the tiger soon, the results could be catastrophic. He felt life returning to him only when he saw the tiger which had been brought from the People's Park in Madras and kept hidden in his house. So, this is what the Diwan planned. He brought a tiger from the People's Park in Madras and he had hid that tiger in his house. At midnight, when the town slept in peace, the Diwan and his aged wife dragged the tiger to the car and shoved it into the seat. The Diwan himself drove the car straight to the forest where the Maharaja was hunting. When they reached the forest, the tiger launched its satyagraha and refused to get out of the car. The Diwan was thoroughly exhausted in his efforts to howl the beast out of the car and push it down to the ground. That is what he had to do. He had to push the tiger out of the car so that the Maharaja could hunt it. On the following day, the same old tiger wandered into the Maharaja's presence and stood as if in humble supplication. Master, what do you command of me? As if the tiger is saying. In that way, the tiger was standing in front of the Maharaj. It was with boundless joy that the Maharaja took careful aim of the beast. The tiger fell in a crumpled heap. I have killed the 100th tiger. My vow has been fulfilled. The Maharaja was overcome with elation, with joy. Ordering the tiger to be brought to the capital in grand procession, the Maharaja hastened in his car. After the Maharaja left, the hunters went to take a closer look at the tiger. The tiger looked back at them, rolling its eyes in bafflement. The bullet had missed it. It fainted from the shock of the bullet whizzing past. The hunters wondered what they should do. They decided that the Maharaja must not come to know that he had missed his target. If he did, they could lose their jobs. One of the hunters took aim from the distance of 1 foot and shot the tiger. This time he killed it without missing his mark. Then, as commanded by the king, the dead tiger was taken in procession through the town and buried. A tomb was erected over it. A few days later, the Maharaja's son's third birthday was celebrated. Until then, the Maharaja had given his entire mind over the tiger hunting. He had had no time to spare for the crown prince. But now the king turned his attention to the child. He wished to give him some special gift on his birthday. He went to the shopping center in Pratibandpuram and searched every shop, but couldn't find anything suitable. Finally, he spotted a wooden tiger in a toy shop and decided it was the perfect gift. The wooden tiger cost only 2 annas and a quarter, but the shopkeeper knew that if he quoted such a low price to the Maharaja, he would be punished under the rules of the emergency. Extremely rare example of craftsmanship, a bargain at 300 rupees. Very good. Let this be your offering to the crown prince on his birthday, said the king, and took it away from him. On that day, the father and the son played with that tiny little wooden tiger. It had been carved by an unskilled carpenter. Its surface was rough. Tiny slivers of wood stood up like quills all over it. One of these slivers pierced the Maharaja's right hand. He pulled it out with his left hand and continued to play with the prince. The next day, infection flared in the Maharaja's right hand. In 4 days, it developed into a suppurating sore which spread all over his arm. 3 famous surgeons were brought in from Madras. After holding a consultation, they decided to operate. The operation took place. The 3 surgeons who performed it came out of the theatre and announced, "The operation was successful. The Maharaja is dead." In this manner, the 100th tiger took its final revenge upon the tiger. Thank you.